Hi, everybody. I'm going to get us started. My name is Sandy Gold. I am the Director of Jewish Education Programs at Gateways here in Boston. And I am really delighted to welcome you to this panel discussion that we've put together. We're excited to share with you some personal stories from families whose children have some learning challenges that made their pathway to their bar or bat mitzvah a little different than others. In a moment, we'll introduce those families to you, but first we do want to thank CJP for their support in making this happen, especially in our efforts to reach out to congregations in Metrowest South area and on the North Shore. Earlier this year, my colleague Rebecca Redner, who you will hear from in just a few minutes, together we worked with about 18 congregations all across the Boston area, exploring what a bar or bat mitzvah for a child with special needs could look like and how families could begin to prepare for it. So now that we've worked with the congregations, we're really excited to connect with families who may either be already in their journey and on their way to their child's bar or bat mitzvah, or are thinking ahead to the celebration that is still to come. And so tonight we're really excited to share with you these 4 families, all of whom are going to describe their experiences and their insights about their child's own bar or bat mitzvah, as well as being joined by a rabbi from the area who has officiated in a number of, I was given the phrase special b'nai mitzvah, but let's be honest, all b'nai mitzvah are special. So right now, Rebecca is going to share her screen with you, and we want to get us started with just a couple of program notes. This session is being recorded, so if for any reason you do not want your image to be shared beyond this session, please turn your video off. Please make sure your microphone is muted so that we don't have too much background noise. We really want to be able to hear our panelists. And at the end, we will have a time at the end of the presentation to unmute and ask some questions directly. But in the meantime, please use the chat at the bottom of your screen. Add in comments or questions as you think of them, and we will be paying attention to those during the discussion, and we will do our best to get your questions answered as quickly as we can. We also have closed captioning available for this panel discussion. You should have that closed caption symbol at the bottom, and if please make use of it if that is going to help you. So, given that, we would like to introduce our panelists to you. We have 4 parents and Rabbi Barry, and to do that, my colleague Rebecca Redner is going to jump on in now too. Rebecca directs the Gateways B'nai Mitzvah program. It's a 2-year program designed to support children with disabilities in their preparation for a bar or bat mitzvah. And I just have to say, she is just unbelievable at what she does. And I think you will all really be excited to hear some of the things that she has done in the past. We're going to introduce our parents who are going to speak with you tonight in chronological order of when their children celebrated their big day, and we're going to start with the one that was first chronologically and end with one that was snuck in right before our shutdown happened. So, Rebecca.
Thank you so much, Sandy. So our first panelist is Alison Denoble. Alison comes from the world of business, and for the past 19 years, she's been heavily involved in many nonprofit organizations in the Boston area, with a focus on children with special needs. She's a member of the Massachusetts Down Syndrome Congress Honorary Board of Directors and is a parent educator for them. So Alison's middle daughter, Ashley, has Down syndrome, and she expressed that she wanted to have a bat mitzvah just like her older sister, and just like she knew her brother was one day going to have. Her bat mitzvah was special for so many reasons. It was also unique because it took place less than a week after the Boston Marathon bombings in 2013. And if, for those of you who lived in the Boston area on that day, you'll remember that that Friday we were all locked down in our homes. And on top of all of the worries we had that day, we all at Gateways, and Alison and her family, that we all had the worry of what's going to happen with Ashley's bat mitzvah. And thankfully, we were able to come out of lockdown and have the most wonderful bat mitzvah. I think it was very healing for all of us who were there. She did an amazing job. And now Ashley is a remarkable young woman who is finishing up her high school career. So Alison, we're very happy to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next parent is Deena Wasc. Deena worked in marketing and promotions and events for a New York City magazine publishing company until she became pregnant with her twin boys, Sam and Jack. And after her boys were born, we learned that Sam had autism while Jack is neurotypical. Deena is a member of the Board of Advisors at the New England Center for Children, NEC, where her son Sam goes to school. Sam is a very happy, playful, now 15-year-old. He thinks he's the funniest person in the room, and he's often the most energetic person in the room. At Gateways, it wasn't uncommon for him to be turning somersaults and bouncing on his yoga ball. Deena and her husband had always envisioned having a b'nai mitzvah for both boys. There was no way that they would have one for one boy and not the other, and their priority was that their boys would both be able to shine individually and together as a team. So Deena, thank you for being here. Sandy, I'm going to turn it back over to you for the other two parents.
Great. So our next parent who you're going to get to hear from is Leah Sugarman. Leah was described, and I don't know who described her this way, as a stay-at-home mom who went on maternity leave and never looked back. Leah is a wonderful writer. Her writing has been in multiple places: Manifestation, Feller, JewishBoston.com, and The Mighty. She lives in Arlington with her husband and their 3 children. Their oldest son their oldest is a son, and then they had twins, a boy-girl twin, set of twins. They have 2 cats and a dog. Saul, one of their twins, received a diagnosis of Fragile X on the first night of Hanukkah when he was a year and a half. Saul is gregarious. He is enthusiastic. Saul lights up the room. There's just no other way to explain him. When he'd be in class with us, he was a cheerleader for his friends. He was everybody's positive compliment, and he loved to shout out, good answer, good answer. He made us all feel like we were winning a game show every time we were with Sam, and with Saul. And when he'd leave, he ended by wishing everybody Shabbat Shalom every single session. Saul and his twin sister celebrated their b'nai mitzvah together this past fall. Sam was beyond excited to be up on the bema, and he enthusiastically led many of the prayers and chanted Torah beautifully, I have to add. And then our 4th parent is Kara Kohler. Kara changed her career paths along the way and became an advocate for children with special needs and medical complexities after becoming a mother of 3 children, all of whom have special needs. Kara has been the chair of the Watertown Special Education Parent Advisory Council, their CPAC. She's co-president of the Perkins Parent Advisory Council at the Perkins School for the Blind. She's on the board of Understanding Our Differences. She is an active member of her Synagogues Inclusion Committee, and she is involved with CJP, Gateways, and Yachad. She's a very busy woman. Kara lived her entire life in Miami until Izzy, her daughter, led them all here to Boston. When Izzy was less than a week old, she had open heart surgery, which saved her life. But at the same time, it also left her with challenges. She has some brain damage, seizure disorder, developmental delays. She's blind in one eye and has limited vision in the other. So in 2013, the whole family moved to Boston to be closer to Izzy's team at Children's Hospital, and so that Izzy could attend the Perkins School for the Blind. Their family has been embraced by the Boston Jewish community. Nobody at Temple Emmanuel, where they are members, blinked when their oldest son ran off the bimah or when Izzy sang at the top of her lungs. Both Izzy and their son Jordan have attended Gateways. Izzy has grown from a little girl who was anxious, frustrated, and unable to communicate into a outgoing, vivacious young woman who celebrated her bat mitzvah this past December, leading her congregation in prayer and chanting a Torah portion.
So, and we are so happy to have Rabbi Berry join us. Rabbi Berry is the co-senior rabbi of Temple Shalom in Newton. She started there in 2011 as the assistant rabbi and the director of their K-6 education program. Rabbi Berry is the proud parent of 2 children with special needs, and she's a passionate advocate for the full inclusion of all people within the Jewish community, and has worked to create an environment at her temple, Temple Shalom, where all the children and adults are welcome and able to learn and connect within the community. She has been a wonderful support from many families and children with diverse needs who have been preparing for B'nai Mitzvah in her community. And I have to say, whenever I've attended a bar bat mitzvah rehearsal with Rabbi Berry, all I can think is this was the best rehearsal ever. So Rabbi Berry, we're so happy to have you join us.
Okay, so now that you know a little bit about everybody, we are going to ask each parent and Rabbi Berry to answer specific questions. We're going to start with the same question, and we're going to ask all 4 parents in the same order we just presented you to share what were your expectations for your child's bar bat mitzvah, and in terms of what that ceremony and what that day might look like, and how did your perspective and your plans possibly change over time as your child began their preparations, and then what did your ceremony actually look like on that day? So kind of like a quick little storytelling for us. Alison, we're going to start with you.
Sure. So I wasn't really sure what to expect. Ashley really wanted to have one, and we wanted to, and we still try to have all our children do as much as they possibly can. And so when we were at Gateways, we started out small for her learning prayers and things. And then Marianne had said, she really thought Ashley has a really good memory, but she wanted her to not rotely learn how to read Hebrew. If she could, she wanted to teach her to read Hebrew. And both she and Rebecca did. And Ashley learned through flashcards, all the vowels, all the letters. We put words together. We worked on it for almost 2 years. And she was able to not only read Hebrew, but she learned trope, and she was able to chant 2 aliyot. So it was amazing. Her bat mitzvah was as close to typical, I think, as you could have. She did everything, even a Devar Torah, which was a back and forth conversation at the time with Rabbi Gervis. And, we rehearsed for, many, many times in the sanctuary for about 6 months prior, just to make sure she was comfortable, to make sure she could be heard in the back of the room, all the logistics. And she was just so proud. And we were unbelievably proud of her and all that she had accomplished. And it really just proved to us that anything is possible. Just because she has Down syndrome, which is an intellectual disability, does not mean that she couldn't do this. And it was incredible because there are a lot of neurotypical people who have problems learning Hebrew. And so we were so pleased. And it was funny, the family reaction was unbelievable, especially afterwards at Kiddush. People were blown away. We also invited a lot of her school teachers that she had and aides, and everyone was just, floored by how wonderful a job she did. And she is so proud of herself. And her time at Gateways really helped to cement her feeling of Jewish identity. And for that, we're so grateful. She really, she loves being Jewish. She loves celebrating holidays. She loves to participate. This past Friday, we went on the Zoom our Temple Shalom Friday night service, and she loves to sing, and she loves to be a part of the community.
Great. Thank you so much.
You're
Deena, we're going to next go to you. Same question. What were your initial expectations, and then how did your journey evolve?
Well, I guess my initial expectations really was just that my twin boys were going to get to have a B'nai Mitzvah together. I didn't quite know what to really expect. I guess my biggest expectation was that it was going to be a beautiful day, a beautiful service, no matter how it was going to shake out, it was going to be a beautiful, beautiful day. I didn't want to have super high expectations because you just don't know. But I do know that Sam was as prepared as he possibly could be by going to Gateways for a number of years and having unbelievable tutors, whether it was his teen tutors over the years or the folks at Gateways. But what also really helped manage my expectations also was that our rabbi was just, he could not have been nicer or more generous. And he was just like, whatever happens will happen. It's going to be a beautiful service no matter what. And we'll just see how it goes. But the biggest, I guess, help for us was that our service was, the service itself was probably about an hour long. We just focused on the prayers that were most important and the songs that were most important. So that helped, I guess, manage our expectations overall, because I think if we had the traditional length of a bar mitzvah service, it just would have been way too much. And I think what also helped make the morning so successful was that we just had pretty much a close family there and good friends and some teachers. That was it, because we just wanted to manage expectations. We didn't want to have all of our friends, all of our extended family there. We wanted to set the morning up for success. And I think we did.
Great. Thank you. Leah, you also have twins. If you could unmute, you're muted.
Hi. So yes, I also have twins. So I have an older son who's 16 now, and when he had his bar mitzvah, 3+ years ago, I remember thinking, gosh, I hope Ian and Saul, who are my twins, who are 2 years younger, I hope they can have a decent day. I hope Saul doesn't ruin it for me. I was really concerned about her having a day and him kind of just tagging along. But as soon as we started at Gateways, it became very clear that Saul took off. He loved the services, the prayers. By the time we sat down with our rabbi at Temple Lamuna, he was shocked to hear how much Gateways had accomplished with Saul and how ready he was. It was just definitely the best day of my life. It was so wonderful because my twins don't get to do much together because one has special needs and one doesn't. So seeing them up there, both being so proud, both being so happy, and both being such, together, but also being individuals, just was incredible. And I really did go from, gosh, I hope he can sit on the bima and not cause a disruption, to, oh my gosh, he's chanting Maftir and leading the Torah service and wants to do more than we're letting him because he has to leave some for his sister to do. So just his love of the day, of the service, of the prayers, of the temple. I mean, he's so happy and comfortable at our temple. He's a member of the minyan in every sense, putting on his talis and jumping in there. And it was all, thanks to Gateways and Miriam and Rebecca and everyone who worked with him, who really got him comfortable, happy, ready. And, he was just so proud. And it was just really a great moment, I think, for our family, for our temple, for everyone who was there. And we're just really grateful. He just outshined us beyond our wildest expectations.
That's great. And Kara, yours was even the most recent. It was like you snuck it in right before we all got shut down. So
in my situation, I think it's a little different just because I started out with Jordan, my oldest, who has autism in Gateways. I had no expectations for my daughter at all. My unfortunate thought was, well, she's a girl, so it's not required, which thinking back was sad, but that's kind of how I dealt with it. So going through it with Jordan, who was high functioning enough to completely read the Torah, but needed that extra support, I started recognizing what Isabella was probably capable of handling and doing and would be successful at in her day. And luckily they're 4 years apart, so I had lots of time to work with Rebecca and figure out what would be the most successful situation for Isabella. So in my situation, Jordan was able to completely read the Torah on his own with support from Gateways. Isabella needed visuals and guidance between Gateways and Perkins and our temple, which we're part of Temple Emmanuel. And we probably started the process a lot sooner with her. I would say about 2 years prior, and about 9 months prior to the bat mitzvah, we started working in the actual temple, meeting Rebecca there, finding what area Isabella would feel most successful in, which for her was to be in the chapel. We chose to go with a private ceremony for her, where for my son, we opened it up to the congregation, and really found a way to incorporate her everyday life, which to me is Braille, inclusion, including everyone from Perkins, School for the Blind, from the temple, from Gateways, really trying to open it up to everyone who's a part of her life and find a way for her to be successful and be happy and for them to enjoy the moment with her. And that was my biggest goal, was for her to feel successful and happy, but for everyone to really be a part of this, because everyone who was invited had really been a part of helping Isabella grow and be successful and get over the hump of challenges that were handed to her in a way that we didn't expect. So for me, that was the most important moment, and celebrating all her accomplishments throughout the day and through everything she'd accomplished, from coming from Florida to Massachusetts, and realizing her capabilities, which I think for her had really started when we first moved here.
Great, thank you. Deena, a question for you. Did you at any point feel pressure from either I know you said your rabbi embraced what your plans were, but did you feel pressure from anywhere else to have a quote typical bar mitzvah for your boys?
Oh gosh, no. No one gave me any pressure at all. No, not at all. No, there'd be no reason for anyone to give us any pressure, even though my father is Israeli. And no, didn't feel 1 ounce of pressure at all. And in fact, throughout the whole service, everyone that was there, and I think you, Rebecca, as well, were just crying because they couldn't believe how beautiful the whole service was and how wonderful Sam did. And I remember just looking around, I'm like, why the heck is everybody crying? It's such a beautiful day. But I think it was beautiful, it was special, and I think everyone was also just blown away and surprised at everything that he can do and how wonderful Sam was with Jack, my typical son, and vice versa. So, but no pressure from anyone. Yeah.
Great. Rabbi Barry, I'm going to jump to you. Do you have any words of wisdom that you'd want to share from the point of view of being the clergy member, in terms of families that come to you and they're trying to imagine what would bar a bat mitzvah look like for their child, in terms of these preconceived ideas that people have about what it should be?
So first of all, thank you so much for having me here. And I'm really honored to be with this group. And I just also want to start by saying our community is really grateful to Gateways. The staff work tirelessly to support kids in our community. And every time we've had the opportunity to work with them on creating a bar bat mitzvah for one of our children in our community, it is such an honor and pleasure. And so thank you. You're appreciated. I think the first thing we really work hard to do is to not have any preconceived notions. We try to meet with families when we know that a child has any type of challenge or difference very, very early. So we assign B'nai Mitzvah dates at the end of 4th grade, and we will have conversations with any of the families that we think we need to as that process is happening. And the reason we do that is we don't want anybody to think that they can't pick a date, they can't schedule a date, or that that they're not going to do it because they feel that maybe it just can't happen. We just don't want anybody to walk away with that sense. And then we usually start, depending on what a child needs, as far as 2+ years out, just like Alison Denoble shared. I know Ashley started really, really early, so we give kids a long runway. We do not want them to have anxiety. And number one is we sit down at the beginning of that process and we have a goal setting meeting with a team that we create. And the team usually consists, of course, of the parents, who are the most important members of that team, the child, whoever the child's tutor is going to be, usually our cantor, one of our educators who knows the child best, and if the parents feel comfortable with one of the child's school teachers, because we find that to include the school in some way gives us the most helpful insight into how this child learns and how we can best support them, and we can think creatively. And then we set goals. We have no presupposed idea at that point until we set those goals. And those goals can be adjusted as we move through the process depending on how things are going. But it's really important that all of us are on the same page and that we agree together what this should look like. We do not automatically assume that a child with any type of need is going to be in our chapel or is going to have a private service. We want that to be a team and mostly a parental choice. What do we feel is going to make this child feel great? There are some denominational differences. In the Reform movement, our major communal service is on Friday evenings, and our service on Saturday mornings tends to be a more private service for B'nai Mitzvah. And so what that does mean is we have incredible flexibility with what we can do on Shabbat morning. There is no preconceived or set sense from the community that it has to look a certain way. And in fact, we tell every single family that every single bar and bat mitzvah looks different. It doesn't matter who the child is because of who that individual might be. One of the things that we work really hard to do from the beginning is to create a great teaching experience for the child. We want the child in whatever way they can to teach our community something either about their Torah portion or themselves or Judaism. And so we really try very early again to spend a great deal of time thinking about what that could be. I didn't tell the Gateway staff this. I did get permission from a parent. We had a bat mitzvah in March before all of this happened for a very special young lady. And she had a special interest for years, which was cartooning. And in fact, it was almost impossible to communicate about the story and the narrative and the Torah with her when it wasn't a cartoon. And so what we had her do for her Devar Torah, the screen sharing is disabled, so I may not be able to share it. But what we had her do is we learned the story of the golden calf, which was her Torah portion, and she created this outstanding cartoon of the story using her characters that were her characters that were sort of part of her special interest. And then we created them in slides, and the slides went up onto the screens during our service, and we narrated together the story of the golden calf. And it was amazing in a way that I think could never have happened if we hadn't really tried to dig in and figure out who this child was and what she did best. So I'm going to share this because it was just too great not to share. And actually, her mom was so excited about the idea that we could show a few. So you can see, this is just the very beginning. The Israelites are complaining and groaning, and this is Moses, the little purple figure, saying, let's go, and we're almost there. And now he's saying, I'm gonna go talk to God, and he goes up the mountain. Her character's name is Splotchy. And it just continues on from there, and the people are asking, where is he? And so they create this creature in the bottom right. And we can see Moses smashes the tablets, and then God is this little creature with the sun with the glasses on. So she and I got to have on the Bima this great discussion about why she chose for God to look that way. And it just went on from there, and it was the greatest thing. There really wasn't a dry eye. And this is a child that had an extraordinarily difficult time communicating, except through art. And when she drew, she had so much creativity, and there was so much there that would never have come out in other ways. And so number one is that we really try to get to that in whatever way it makes sense for every single one of our kids. And then we spend lots of time rehearsing. And it depends on what the child needs. And in my experience, what we found is more rehearsals for less time have been more effective, because that way it gets the child comfortable. They get to know me, they get to know the cantor, but it's not overwhelming because we're not asking them to do too much at once. And it depends. We sort of feel things out as we go. And the number one piece is we try to work to every child's potential, and we determine as a team what that is. And it's one of the greatest honors of my career and life to do this work, and to see the look on that kid's face that day when they realize what they've done. There's nothing like it. So that's my long my long spiel.
Thank you. So we've heard from Kara and from Alison already that along the way there was that the teaching and the learning was geared towards their child's needs. And then we heard from Rabbi Barry a lot of the strategies that they have found helpful along the way. I want to wonder if either Leah or Deena, do you have anything to add in terms of the learning process and how it became individualized or personalized to your child's needs?
I was very, very grateful about the rehearsals and the extra time. Rebecca and Miriam, who was Saul's tutor, and Sandy were incredibly generous with their time coming over to our temple and practicing in the sanctuary, which was so important for Saul. I don't think he could have made it through the day if he hadn't had so many dry runs. And ironically, you know, the new assistant rabbi who was working with us pointed out that a lot of the typical, so-called typical kids probably could use a lot more of that rehearsing too. And it was just a good example of, you know, what works for kids is, you know, meeting them where they are. But it was great. The generous time and the running through, just like the rabbi said, was really important.
Super. Deena, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, no, I'm going to echo what she was saying, that we had plenty of extra time to go into the sanctuary, for Sam to feel comfortable with it, to feel comfortable with the space. And so that was immensely helpful. And what was also helpful was the constant communication with our rabbi, along with Rebecca and Mia at Gateways. So we were all on the same page, And I think we met with our rabbi, gosh, a handful of times. And also, just to piggyback what the rabbi was saying, Rabbi Barry, that I think was also really helpful was that when we would go to the sanctuary for the rehearsals, they weren't super long. They were short. We got to the point. They were successful, and then boom, and then we left. Then we would do it week after week after week. So that was successful.
I want to shift a little bit away from the personal, individualized stories and think about our synagogue communities. I happen to have been lucky enough to be at Saul's bar mitzvah earlier this year. And at the end of the ceremony, there were a couple of little old ladies sitting behind us, and they tapped me and another Gateways colleague on our shoulders, and she's asked, "Are you the Gateways people?" And we said, yes. And she said, "I've been coming to this temple for years, and I have to tell you, this was the best ceremony we've ever been to." And I'm wondering if, Kara, maybe would you like to speak to how Izzy's celebration had an impact on your congregation and how your community outside of your immediate family, you know, that you invited, reacted to the experience?
So in my situation, I felt like our temple between our oldest to Isabella took this massive learning curve. Like they just kept evolving and learning along the way on how to really open up the thought process of how to have a bat mitzvah for Isabella. And our ceremony was closed, but we invited we invited the clergy, we invited the inclusion committee and their families to join in and see, because I felt that this was something that we all had to celebrate together because of all the work they had done behind the scenes to make this possible for my daughter. And the reaction, they made me cry that day, because every time I looked out into the audience, they were all bawling. They had smiles of pride across their face, because a lot of them had been working for decades to create this full inclusion, and it kind of felt full circle. It even felt that way for me from my son to my daughter, because of the fact that it wasn't perfect when my son was being bar mitzvahed, but they were willing to, I always say, move the ship. They were willing to turn and figure out the right way to do it, right? We don't need it to be perfect. We just need people to be willing and open. And I felt that they were willing and open. And by the time it came to my daughter, it was like, what do we need to do to make this successful for her? And in return, it made it successful for everyone else. And I felt a sense of pride throughout our community at our synagogue, and a sense of that the judgment had been washed away. There was no judgment anymore. It was solely about giving this child the right to passage to becoming a young woman and having her opportunity to read the Torah in the best way fit for her. And that was huge, a huge moment, I would say. And I felt it. I was able to sit back and truly see that come across everyone's face. And then of course I received phone calls and emails and hugs and kisses when we were still allowed to kiss. And, you know, it was really a moment that I'm severely proud of, not only for my family, but for our entire congregation, especially coming, you know, only being here for 6 years after being at a temple my entire life and coming here. It was such an incredible experience to have.
Thanks. Alison, do you want to talk a little bit about where Ashley is in terms of her Jewish identity? How did this experience of becoming a bat mitzvah, like her older sibling, impact her as she's continued on?
Well, it was an incredible experience for her, and she really gained a real sense of Jewish identity, and she's extremely proud of it, which makes us very proud. And she loves to participate in, after her bat mitzvah, she participated in Gateway's, their post-B'nai Mitzvah, the Mitzvah Mentor, for a couple of years. And now she's not in any formal Jewish programming. However, whenever there is an opportunity to go to temple, or like last Friday, we were on Zoom with temple, and she just absolutely, she loves it. She loves taking part in the Passover Seder. You know, she's really, it was such a turning point. You know, she's extremely musical, and she's very verbal, and she just, you know, loves to, you know, the singing, the melodies, the familiarity. It's just very comforting and very fun for her.
And she participates. I'm just going to jump in every year at the high holidays. She does something, and well, if we're digital this year, we'll have to figure out what we're going to do.
Yeah, that would be great. And recently, it started just a few months before she started working at Temple Shalom, volunteering on Fridays, and she got to go to the preschool on Friday morning when they do their Shabbat service, and she was all about that. She really would come home and talk about that. Yeah.
I think before we switch to questions, one from the participants, in 1 or 2 sentences, I'd love to go around and ask each of you if you could give one piece of advice to other families who are getting ready to either start this journey or in the midst of it, what would that advice be? And this time we're going to go in the reverse order. So Kara, you're in the hot seat first.
No judgment. There's no judgment of how it should be. It's about your child that day and experiencing Judaism and reading the Torah in the way that works for them. And so all the past beliefs that it has to be a specific way shouldn't affect you in that moment. You should just enjoy that moment and realize that every challenge, every mountain your child's had to climb has come to this point, and that you and them should enjoy it no matter what that moment looks like.
It's beautiful. Leah, your one bit of advice you'd want to leave families with?
I would say to not set limits, to let, to see what your child is able to and wants to do, because I think I mentioned I would have never predicted how much Saul was able to do and how much he would want to do, which was lovely.
A great lesson. Deena?
I agree with both of what those mothers just said. They kind of took the words out of my mouth, frankly. But don't have any preconceived notions as to what the day will look like. It will be successful no matter what. And also just to understand that it's about the child, it's not about you. It's celebrating anything and everything that your child can do during the service. And I'm telling you, you're going to be blown away. You're going to be like, oh my God, I never knew my child could do that. You're going to be blown away no matter what.
Alison, you're going to end the parents here. Your bit of advice.
Well, I echo what everyone's been saying, but I also wanted to add that let them drive the bus, let them help formulate the service, because then they're going to feel the most comfortable. And I would also say practice. I spent a lot of time practicing with Ashley, and we would videotape her a lot on my phone, and she really loved to see that, and then we'd play it back. So again, like, practice takes away the anxiety.
Great. Rabbi Barry, do you have a one-sentence bit of advice that hasn't been said yet? I know you gave a lot of advice earlier, but do you have one last thought you want to leave people with?
I think challenge us, really. Come to us as parents and say, can we try X, or can we try Y? Or what do you think about Z? And push us to do this. Push us to make sure that your kid has the day that all of us can dream about and that you dream about, and hold us accountable to that. That's our obligation to you, is to make sure that everybody in our community can participate in some way and own their Judaism and own it through becoming bar bat mitzvah. So that's my piece for you.
If we had written the dialogue for the five of you, I don't think Rebecca and I could have done it better. So thank you. That was amazing. A question came into the chat for the four families. And I guess, Rabbi Barry, if you had knowledge of this, chime in too. The question was, did any of you at any point think about having your child's bar bat mitzvah in Israel?
Carol doesn't travel.
My oldest really wanted his in Israel originally, until he remembered that he couldn't take his specific pasta sauce and specific foods with him. But we did have the discussion, and I think it's important to, I do know families who have traveled and been successful at it. So I don't think it shouldn't be something taken off the table for any family. If it works for your family, I think there's a way to make it work. And Israel is severely, they're open and they're innovative to everything forefront and inclusion. So I think that's important to really know, and that I believe Gateways and any synagogue would be honored to work on that. So whoever asked that, if you're thinking about it, research and go for it.
Leah, I saw you shake your head no immediately.
Well, we know Saul doesn't travel well, so.
Alison or Deena, anything to add?
We didn't contemplate going to Israel, but my husband went on a CJP mission to Israel a few months prior to Ashley's bat mitzvah, and he bought both Ashley and my son, whose bat mitzvah was 6 months after Ashley's, whose bar mitzvah, bought talis in Jerusalem. So they both had talit from Israel. So that was special.
Super.
Well, yes, we did think about it. I was bat mitzvah along with my twin brother in Israel when we were 13, and with my father being Israeli. So it could have worked, but doing it local was just easier for us. That's all. It was just easier.
There are some great questions coming in on the chat, and I will read the ones that have been asked, but people should feel, if they want to ask it in their own voice, we are open to having people unmute themselves and ask. One question came in was, did anyone pre-videotape your child in case they had stage fright so that you'd be able to show it? Kara!
Yes, we videotaped Isabella. We discussed it with our clergy, and they were willing. That was the first thing we initially thought, was there was no way she's going to get up in front of 150 people and read Torah. So we videotaped her ahead of time. We worked with Rebecca for months on videotaping her. And then we pieced it together and worked with Michael Siegel and the temple and had it ready to go with somebody there to click the button. So of course the synagogue, we're at Temple Emmanuel, they had to approve having the TV in the room, and they were willing, and it was set to go. And the nice thing is she ends up actually getting up. She was quiet, but she did speak her whole Torah portion. But the nice thing is I have it on video now. So, but yes, we did that. And part of me kind of wanted her to experience watching herself. But at the same time, it was like that double-edged sword, watching yourself or actually getting up. Either way, I felt it was a win.
It was great.
Mm-hmm.
Another question that came in is, how, if at all, did you prepare the congregation to participate and support the B'nai Mitzvah students? And this is something that came up for Rebecca and I when we were working with the congregations earlier this year. We do hear that a lot, that what will the ritual committee say? What will the congregation say? So I'm wondering if any of you want to address that one directly, any preparation you had to do for the congregation, or Rebecca, you might actually want to chime in on that one too.
I can speak. I just don't want to be the one to always speaking. So.
Rebecca, you unmuted and unmuted. Did you have something you want to say, or do you want Kara to take it?
No, Kara, go ahead.
Oh, okay. So in my situation, I spoke with the clergy up front and ahead of time for both my children and what to expect. And they helped me decide whether to have it in the chapel, whether to have it into the sanctuary, what type of service we wanted. I knew neither one of my older children could handle a morning service, so we did a Mitzvah at a Saturday night. And my son's was open, my daughter's was private. So I think it's really important to have that conversation, because a lot of the questions I had was, what if he screams out? I need to have Braille, I need to create programming. And so I think it's very important to discuss with your clergy what you're thinking and not be afraid to ask them. I even went as far to ask about photography, but that's where they nixed me. But everything else I got to do. But I figured, let me just throw it out there. But I think it's really important to not be afraid to talk to your clergy, because they truly want to help. And I find in the Boston area, it's unbelievable, the help and the open-mindedness that's come within our sanctuaries. So have that conversation and don't be afraid to.
Rebecca, did you want to say something?
Yes, so this actually came up at a bar mitzvah we did last spring. This was a young man who was having a Saturday morning bar mitzvah at a conservative synagogue. So this was a bar mitzvah where a lot of people from the congregation would be coming, and it was a bar mitzvah that was going to look very different. He was going to be using his iPad in order to say the prayers. And his parents said to us at one of the many rehearsals beforehand, how are we going to prepare people for this? Because people are going to walk in expecting a regular old service, and they're not going to get that. So what they ended up doing is they ended up writing an article, I think, in the temple newsletter beforehand, and making an announcement the week before that the upcoming week was going to be a special bar mitzvah. And then the bar mitzvah boy does play a role in the Friday night service before the bar mitzvah. So that was another opportunity to tell people, come tomorrow and you're going to see him become bar mitzvah. So it was a matter, it wasn't so much preparing them in any special way, it was just letting people know so they wouldn't be surprised. And they, you know, just as our children need to know what to expect as when they go into something, it's nice for the rest of us to know what to expect as well.
Great. And then before we ran out of time, another question that came in on the chat was, how did you prepare for the gross or fine motor issues for the ceremony? I don't know. Rebecca, did you want to address that? Or you're pondering? I don't want to put you on the spot.
Mm-hmm.
Allison, did you have something?
Well, we didn't, Ashley, there really wasn't any gross or fine motor. Ashley she does have fine motor issues, but, you know, reading, you know, following along with a pointer was not a problem for her. And we did, of course, practice ahead of time. And no, one thing I did was I had also up on the Bima for her was her printout in a bigger font, and for her to actually, when she was chanting Torah, it was open to the appropriate page. And, you know, the yad was put where it should have been, but, you know, we made sure that she had everything she could, you know, all the tools that she needed.
Yeah, just to chime in, so Sam had his own binder that he referred to when it was his turn to speak. So he didn't read directly from the Torah. He read from the binder that was given to him by Gateways. Again, bigger font, images. It was all, the Hebrew was phonetically done. So yeah, so that's we did.
So we had yeah, Isabella uses a wheelchair sometimes for her vision and her and for long distances, but she also feels safer and more secure in big groups. So she wanted her wheelchair during the service. So we worked with the synagogue to make sure that the chapel was accessible, not only for her, but for she had 7 friends coming that would also be using a chair or a white cane. So we made sure to, you know, make sure the temple had accessibility. We made sure that we had Braille, large print, and Mayor Johnson pictures for the programming for the children. And then we had for her on the Bima a slant board because of her vision. She needs a slant board. So we created a slant board that was specifically for the Bima, so she could use her book that Rebecca created for her to say her prayers. And I think I don't remember, Rebecca, did she have her iPad with her or just her strip schedule?
No, she just had her strip schedule. And one other thing I'll add to this is I remember once having a student and there was a concern about her ability to hold the yad and point to the words in the Torah without possibly damaging the Torah. So what we did is we used a clear page protector, just, you know, the kind that you get at Staples and put in a binder. And we put that on top of her portion. And also there was a little bit of a concern about drooling as well. So having that page protector there took away that anxiety. So she was able to point very confidently. I hear Isabella's voice.
Did that answer the question? I don't know who Julie is who asked the question. I'm wondering if
I'd add one more. We had twin boys last year who needed gross motor body breaks after more than about a half an hour. They just could not go 30 minutes, and they were really busy boys. And so we built in for each of them a gross motor break, where we had somebody, where we made it very natural that each of them in their turn went out. We had a space for them where they ran around and had some of the, one of them needed really hard input stuff, and so we had something ready for him. I think the mom brought some kind of actually like punching bag that was in the room. They each had their 4-minute gross motor break and then came back in, and it was just very, we just sort of created a situation where it really flowed, and it just didn't feel like it was anything more than what was intended in the service, and it was great for the kids.
Great.
So, yeah, we actually did that too. Now that you said that, I saw Rebecca smiling because we made it that Isabella had bathroom breaks in between, and the rabbi and the cantor played music during that time. So it just was a smooth transition in and a smooth transition out. And one of the other things we did was requested that everyone not clap or cheer or yell Mazel Tov very loud for her, for the heightened hearing that she has, and everyone was willing, and so we announced that ahead of time also.
Great. Rebecca, I am going to ask you to pick up on this. The follow-up to this question was about a child with cerebral palsy that impacts his left side, that he's mobile but weak, and the concern about carrying the Torah. And I know you've worked with a lot of our children who have some of the medical complexities. So I'm hoping you could just finish that up for us.
Okay, so there's two things that we've done with kids who have difficulty carrying the Torah. Three things. One is that we see if maybe their temple has a smaller Torah. Some temples do have kosher, smaller Torahs that are easier for the kids to carry, that they could even carry with one hand. We do have also small model Torahs that are not kosher, but that we've bought from Judaica stores that our students have carried at their B'nai Mitzvah, and they're beautiful. They're covered with the velvet cover and everything. And then the third thing that we've done, and I believe might have been what we did with Saul, is that Saul held the Torah with the help of his father. So he kind of held one part and his father held the other. So that way it was very secure, it was kind of a very touching moment, the two of them holding it together. But he was still able to take part in that.
Great. Rebecca did upload the link into the chat if anybody is interested in seeing Isabella's rehearsal that got videotaped, it's really, really special. You really all should watch it. And if you go to the Gateway's website, we have created an entire section on the website with resources and materials, and you can read more about the stories of the families that shared with us tonight. And that it's all there. Rebecca just uploaded the link for that as well. We want to thank CJP again for enabling this year-long look at pathways to B'nai Mitzvah. We really couldn't have done all the work we've done with the congregations and without their help. A question did come in that somebody would like us to talk more about the program at Gateways. We did not intend tonight to be a pitch for Gateways, but Rebecca and I are always happy to talk about what we do at Gateways. But I also want to be mindful of the time. We had said this was going to be from 7:30 to 8:30, and it is 8:30. So if anybody feels like they want to log off now, that is totally fine. We won't be hurt or insulted. But Rebecca and I are happy to stay on and talk about specifically the Gateways program. So I'm actually going to say that I came to Gateways 2 years ago, and of all the things that Gateways does, working with Rebecca in the B'nai Mitzvah program is possibly one of the most rewarding things that I have ever done professionally. Our program, that I can't take credit for because it was already incredible when I got here, is really unique in that it was thoughtfully crafted to address the individual learning needs of each child while also enabling them to learn as part of a community, which is so important in this whole process. So our program meets on either Wednesday afternoons or Sunday mornings. If the students come on Wednesday afternoons, they spend the first 45 minutes working one-on-one with a tutor. and the program that they use will really be guided by the child's, what the family has decided is priority and what the child's needs are. So as Allison talked about earlier, we have a reading program that was developed by Marion Green, which follows the, kind of mimics what Orton Gillingham does for teaching children with a learning disability in English, how to read Hebrew. And for our students where phonetic decoding is not the best use of their time, we also will use those visual symbols that Kara referred to, and or a combination of that with some transliteration. And Rebecca really individualizes each child's materials for their learning needs. After the 45 minutes of tutoring, our students then have a tefillah, a 20-minute service every single time they get together. And that also contributes to what you heard from the parents and from Rabbi Barry talking about in terms of the rehearsal. By the time a student has finished the Gateways program, they have participated in and led parts of the Torah service every single week for the 2 years that they were preparing for their service. And then the class period ends with a 20-minute lesson that Rebecca has crafted. She's got a 2-year sequence of topics. Those topics that help make the whole experience meaningful. So helping the children understand the ritual objects and how B'nai Mitzvah might be celebrated in other communities, all the things that make them understand and hopefully connect with the powerful traditions that they are carrying forward. The only difference between the Wednesday afternoon class and the Sunday class is that on Sunday mornings, instead of tutors, the students work with our teen volunteers. We have an amazing network of teen volunteers that are trained by another one of our colleagues, Mia, on how to teach. They are trained in our Hebrew program. They are trained in behavior management. They are trained in their individual child-specific needs, and they provide that tutoring piece on Sundays. Rebecca, do you want to jump in case I didn't represent everything that needed to get said?
Oh no, you represented everything beautifully. I don't think I have anything to add to that. Thank you, Sandy.
So I'm not actually sure who asked the question, but I didn't know if there was more information that you were hoping to hear.
That was good. You covered my question. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're very welcome. If anybody has any last questions or comments, I want to thank the 4 of you, Leah, Deena, Kara, Allison. I mean, I've heard all of your stories now multiple times, and I could listen to all of you 10 more times. I feel like each time I hear you speak, I hear something different that I didn't pick up on before. And the way you, together, it was with Rabbi Barry, the way you summed up that advice that you would give to other families starting this journey. You know, Rebecca and I couldn't have said it better. You really captured the heart and soul and essence of the work that Gateways is doing. So thank you so much for your time and for your thoughtful contributions to this topic.
I think we all love talking about that day, so it's nice chance.
Yes. And I think we all greatly appreciate Gateways and everyone there.
Definitely.
Yeah. So thank you.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.